Welcome to the Industry Dialogue series of Courseplay, uh, an AI-powered SaaS-based LMS, LXP, and PMS platform. That's what Courseplay is from the CIEL HR group. I'm your host today, Saikat Chakraborty. I'm the head of marketing at CIEL HR, and today we are diving into a topic that I guess get asked a lot about, probably, especially by young HR professionals who want to do more than just hire people. So we are talking about building a career in learning and development, one of the most exciting and probably most underrated career paths, I would say, in the people function. We live in a time when probably AI, automation, and the future of work dominate every conversation that we hear in every nook and corner, probably, right? And right at the center of all that noise sits one function that gets overlooked by most people, and that's learning and development. And there's no better person to walk us through it than someone who had spent 27 plus years shaping learning and culture across GCCs, tech companies, and global organizations. Mr. Parag Wadhwane is currently the People Development Leader at Knorr-Bremse Technology Center India. And what I love about him is that he practices what he preaches, whether it's running ultra marathons or trekking to Everest Base Camp. I think he believes in continuous development in every dimension of life. Mr. Parag, so great to have you here in this dialogue series.
Thank you so much to the entire team, and also thank you, Sekat, for that wonderful introduction. Just a quick, maybe correction. So, over the past few months, actually, I have moved into a slightly different role at Knorr-Bremse
Right.
still. Other than the technology center, I'm also taking care of all the other two entities that we have in India. There are two plants. So we have moved as a
Wonderful.
GCC. We have moved into a shared services model. So that's also been very interesting for the past few months. So bit of expanded responsibilities, but enjoying it.
Wonderful, wonderful. I'm sure you will have a lot more experience to share as well from that side of the table.
Absolutely.
Right. So before we get into the career stuff, I have to ask this. I think when I saw this in your profile, I was really excited. Right. You are a vegan runner, you say, and you are a cyclist, trekker. You've done that EBC trek. What's that philosophy that drives you? What you carry in your personal adventures and into your work in L&D? Why don't you give us a little bit glimpse into that?
All right. Uh, so yes, I mean, this is something that I've kind of always been interested, maybe because of the upbringing coming from a defense background. Father was in the Defense Forces, Air Force. We moved
Right.
around places, met a lot of people. So traveling or meeting new people and understanding the cultures has something that's always intrigued me, always been part of sort of the DNA. And then, of course, you know, being outdoors is something that I enjoy doing, and and I'm kind of an ambivert. So I'm not an introvert and an extrovert, but I treat the running or the cycling or the trekking as my me time. Really, it's a great stress buster for me. So I kind of find meaning to a lot of things. I get answers to a lot of my questions. Plus, I think on such journeys we meet people also while you're still doing these alone or in a group. It teaches you a lot about human psychology. Very frankly, I mean, so yes, there is an ulterior motive to understand human psychology, but I think at the end of the day, all of us also crave for that centeredness, and this brings in that centeredness for me. So yes, it's something that I enjoy doing. It's become sort of a annual ritual to do probably a trek a year, a longer trek, maybe a 7+ days trek, or maybe uh, also being a vegan. Since you spoke about it, that also comes from this whole philosophy of Vasudhaiva Kutumbakam, right? We are all one family.
One
Uh,
family.
but I was moved for various reasons, and 10 years back, I embarked on this lifestyle of being a vegan, and it has been wonderful since then. In a small little way, however better I can, contribute is what I'm doing, because I feel more than it being a lifestyle, it's also a thought process, and it has tremendous other benefits, including health and your overall well-being.
Absolutely. I think it's extremely inspiring for all the listeners out there today. I think it's a great detoxifier, right? When you go for a run, even or for cycling, and of course for a 7 day trek. I think like you said, it builds that connectedness to the nature, to oneself. Ultimately, we are all connected to the nature, right? So, absolutely. I think uh, I think we'll go right into it now.
Sure.
Um, uh, So Parag, I see a lot of people who land in L&D. They don't choose that intentionally. Maybe they just happen to land into it, right? Maybe they were good at training somewhere, their team, or maybe they were good at presenting, and suddenly they are the trainer, right? Is that
Yeah.
the right way in, right? So
uh,
for someone who is aspiring, uh, what should they understand probably about the role before choosing that as a career?
right. So I want to take a step back here. So whenever I'm hiring for my team, it is a bit of a challenge, very frankly, and very, like you rightly said, for most of the people it is by accident. Um, but for some it is also a choice, and I try to look for people who are making that conscious choice. Um, if not, even if it has happened by accident, is it a happy accident or a coincidence for them? Because I think when we talk of a L&D professional, there are, again, if I was to compare it with few years back and now, the possibilities have increased quite a bit. Uh, Probably about 10 years ago, an L&D professional was doing multiple things, maybe even delivering a certain session, also getting the requirements, designing it. All of that end to end was kind of happening. But now, if you see, you have different career pathways available based on an interest, right? You can either get into the learning operations kind of a path, or the learning technology path, the learning management systems, and being a product owner of the LMS, or you can get into instructional design kind of a path. There is a facilitation path, which is the core training path. Then there is the talent development path. So you can also aspire to get into that. And then finally, we also look at the knowledge management path. So today there are these different uh, career pathways that are available to people, but at the core of it is how what am I aligned to, what are my interests aligned to, which I think is crucial. Because as an L&D professional, I think if I am somebody who wants to be a better version of myself every single day than I was yesterday, I think that is crucial. The learnability of a learning professional itself is very crucial. So because otherwise then you will just get into it, treat it like a job. It may or may not work for you always.
Right. Right. I think wonderfully put there. Just maybe a follow up to this slight sidetrack. So, would you say that is L&D for people who love people, or maybe for people who love problems?
Great one. I would go with the second one. At the end of the day, if I just choose the first one, the problem with that is then it becomes a supporting function and not an enabling
Supporting.
function. The second one becomes an enabling function. And if L&D has to become the enabling function, it has to support business and the business outcomes, the KPIs that the business or the CFO cares about. In that case, yes, they have to love problems. They need to be able to even understand the problems and how to decipher those problems, and then work with the leaders or the uh, line managers to actually solve those problems. So moving away from just creating and delivering content, or providing certain learning services, I think it is all about, at the end of the day, are the KPIs moving? Are we supporting the organization move to the next level in terms of their performance, in terms of readiness for the future skills? And also, are we creating an infrastructure that will enable that learning? So that's the mindset I believe professionals need to have when they are choosing this kind of a career.
Absolutely. Thank you. Thank you so much for that. Right. Well, for the next part of my question, probably would be Uh, I hear a lot of advice that goes around, right? You get certified on this, you learn design thinking, you master certain LMS tools, but you have been the hiring side for decades, which you just talked about, right? What do you actually look for when you are hiring for your team in terms of either certificates or thinking capability or the tool mastery? How do you go about it?
All right. Um, so the short answer is I would that would what I'm looking for would depend on what the role is. Like I mentioned, there are different roles. So if I'm looking at more of an LMS administrator, naturally I'm going to look for some certification and experience working on learning management systems or learning experience systems, right? uh, but if I was just a generic L&D professional, then I would definitely want to see certain competencies that the individual brings on board. Like I said, first and foremost, as a learning professional, how is my learnability, or how is that individual's learnability, is something that I would definitely look at. Um, and then ability to also understand the learning ecosystem. So, who are the stakeholders and who are the decision makers? How does the entire process from one end to the other end happen? How do I look at assessing the effectiveness? How are the programs getting designed? All of that end to end is what I would look at. But a short answer, like I said, would really depend on the role. And just to give you an
Mhm.
example, let's say I was hiring somebody for an instructional design, then yes, I would look at understanding whether ID is something that the person has done either a certification or even at least understands what's a ADDIE model, what's the storyboarding, and how to use what are the different tools that can be used for instructional designing. Versus, let's say I'm looking for somebody who's more on the delivery side, then have they done at least a bare minimum TTT, a train the trainer, or some facilitation course? So yeah, I would typically go about based on that role. uh, but yeah, in general, has to have an interest in being in L&D. I try to always probe whether what's drawing them to L&D, or is it even if it has been by chance, are they here to stay longer, or is it just a stopgap arrangement before I go and explore something else? So that's what I
Right.
would look at. Yeah.
Right, right. You talked about programs. That reminds me, I think at Knorr-Bremse, you had created some wonderful and incredible programs. I hear that Advantage is one, I think, and there was
KB Advantage.
development,
Yeah.
right? And there's leadership conclaves that you had kind of
Right.
hosted. And so, what foundational work made that possible, according to
Okay. So let me talk a little bit about KB Advantage, because that's a kind of a project that is close to me. So we realized that in an organization, there are a lot of people who want to share what they know, right? And I think it's also a basic human craving to share what they know, and we wanted to give our employees a platform. So for lack of a better word, KB Advantage became our internal TED Talk kind of a session, but on a virtual platform. So
you?
we offered this to our employees to come and share. Maybe it could be a book review, it could be some life philosophy that they follow, it could be
Mhm.
an incident that happened with them, or a topic that they think will benefit people in general, or employees at large. Uh, None of it is technical really. It's all very uh, I would say on the behavioral side, or sharing their experiences. So it's a platform that we created when we got to know, or when we were interacting. Again, one of the things I might point out here is, um, a lot of L&D professionals go to the office, sit on their chair, work with their laptops or whatever project they're working, and they go back home. The human interaction a lot of times is missing. So if I go on the floor, I am interacting with people, I'm meeting the leaders, I'm talking to people around, I get to know what is it that they are really craving, beyond just the learning programs. So that actually was the genesis for us, for KB Advantage. If we look at the conclaves that we've been doing, and I mean that's just one piece where we have started. uh, which is basically getting leaders together to essentially, interact and learn from each other. The peer learning is the best way to learn, right, and to exchange ideas. Uh, but my vision is to actually see a community of practitioners, uh, because in the organization there are always pockets of people who are doing some work. So there, let's say there are bunch of scrum masters, right? uh, then there are bunch of project managers, PMP guys. There are bunch of some other people maybe who are working on, in our case, let's say on a certain technology. Can we create the community of practitioners and host them, so that while different businesses, these people are in pockets in different businesses, because there are
Yes.
different business lines, they may not be talking to each other, but can we provide them a platform where they come, interact, exchange, and grow together? That's what the community of practitioners is.
I think that internal knowledge sharing is extremely, extremely important. Otherwise, we create those silos which sit at and kind of invent the wheel all over again.
Oh, trust me, multiple times it has happened. So we do this monthly connect with our leaders, and in the past, you know some leader in that meeting says, what, I'm looking at this kind of a program for my people. And then somebody else, hey, what, my team has this expertise, and we have actually created a lot of, or delivered a lot of programs through our internal SMEs. But if that platform is completely missing, I would have gone out and probably maybe hired an external person to come and deliver. There's nothing wrong in doing that, but the understanding of the organization and its pain areas that somebody internally would have, and is able to also stitch together the theory and the practical aspect of things, is going to be much better with an internal SME. So in fact, that's something that over the past about 4 years that we've been diligently working with a lot of internal SMEs, developing them. uh, we are looking at creating a train the trainer, internal train the trainer certification also, which will drive some of that, so that, because knowledge is explicit and tacit. I'm focusing on the tacit knowledge actually.
Right, no, absolutely wonderful. I think the things that you are doing there. And another thing that resonates a lot with me that you said is building that connect with the stakeholders, right? Within the floor that you go there, speak out with them. I think a lot of things come up when you connect in person and uh, things happen, I think, when you do that.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Yeah, probably the next question would be I would like to ask you would be on the facilitation point of view, right?
Mm.
I think facilitation has almost become a table stakes now. Everyone can run a workshop. But what, according to you, separates the people who become true thought leaders in this space from those who just stay as trainers?
All right. uh, so again, this whole I got introduced to facilitation maybe about 10 11 years ago through the International Association of Facilitators, IAF. There was an event happening and I ended up attending. And before that, I was using facilitation as a synonym, sort of, to training, but I realized it's completely different. So facilitation is all about not focusing on the content. The content is actually going to come from your audience, um, and that was quite a revelation. Whether facilitation can be applied in all contexts, in all scenarios, probably not. So let's say if I'm going and actually giving a knowledge session on a certain topic, for example, and I'm just taking this as an example, there's a posh session that's happening. I can't do facilitation so much there. Some bit I can, but it has to be more of a training. Facilitation to me is something which actually depends a lot on the facilitator, but at the core, it is, the idea is whether I as a facilitator can uh, create that psychological safety and an environment in the session, whether it is classroom or virtual, where people are sharing, and together as a team can we come to certain consensus. So typically in facilitation, the facilitator has to invoke or encourage divergent views, and also uh, ensure that those divergent views converge somewhere. So there is divergence and convergence. I mean, if somebody, and then you touch a bit of a sour area in some sense, because a lot of people write that they do facilitation, and that's my first question. Okay, tell me, what do you do when you say facilitation? He says, oh, I come and do the training. And I said, no, hold on, facilitation is different. So yes, it's a great adult learning tool if used the right way, if understood the right way and used the right way. So even when we are internally, I was talking about creating those SMEs, our focus is also to uh, create facilitators and not just trainers. The reason again being, all of us working in corporates are adults, we understand things. uh, it's just that there has to be a sort of a structure, and in facilitation there are ways and means and a lot of what are called as processes that are used to ensure that the participants actually come up with their viewpoints, which the facilitator can collect and also then create a consensus at the end or some takeaways for the participants.
Right, I think you just become that guide for people to find their own path forward. I think
In some sense, yes, yes. And facilitation has been in our country for years together. I mean, when I heard about it and thought about it, I was, this is right. So you look at the gram panchayats. That's actually a great way of looking at facilitation. We've always had those
Mhm.
gram panchayats from ages. That's nothing but people come to them with problems, and there are those punch who are sitting, and then they are actually helping them resolve that issue. Uh, and then it's through a dialogue, right?
Right,
That's facilitation.
true. Like, you yourself are a Scrum Master, NLP practitioner, also an international master trainer, right? It's a quite a wide toolkit
Yeah.
that to have for one person. Was that intentional? What drove those choices, if I might ask?
uh, I wish somebody could tell me at that point in time what I need to do. It happened as I went along, and my interest, so as to say. Uh, so yes, it started off, in some sense, started off by doing certain sessions, and maybe because again, like I mentioned, uh, always been happy to interact with people or stand in front of the crowd and talk. But I thought, let me have a bit of a formal education around it. That's when the TIS TTT happened. Then the master training happened. Then I stumbled upon NLP, and I was actually blown away by some of these concepts of NLP. So I've started, practicing using them in my programs, and then facilitation happened. So that's sort of been the journey for me. Um,
Right.
no regrets there. I mean, I would think it each one of us has their own path and their own journey, and for me it has helped deepen my understanding of the topic better. Had I probably skipped or jumped directly to something else, maybe it would have been a different thing. But yeah, I wouldn't change anything if I was asked.
Right. Yeah, no, I think that's wonderful to kind of envious probably for many people to have that kind of a toolkit, if I can call that again. Right. I think for young professionals, what would you say that does specialization beats breadth in terms of the career?
um, so I would think that again, um like I mentioned, those different paths or the tracks
Hmm.
earlier.
Yeah.
As a young professional, I need to look at what really resonates with me. There are certain roles in L&D which are more front ending, where you're talking to stakeholders, business owners, and stuff of that sort. And then there are some which are not so much front ending. They might still have
Hmm.
stakeholders. So, for example, an instructional designer, maybe, or an operations role may not have a day to day front ending with people. Um, and again, I have worked with team members uh, who are a mix. I mean, there are some people who are really good standing in front of a crowd and maybe conducting a session or facilitating a session versus somebody who's not very comfortable. So again, as a leader, what I look at is, or my suggestion or advice there would be, recommendation would be to see what resonates with you as an individual, and then choose the role. Over a
Right.
period of time, of course, as we grow in our careers, um, we are expected to understand multiple things. So um, I also feel that a person should try out different things, not just stick to one. But that is not to say that they are not specialists in some sense. So when you are doing a certain role, you are in a certain role, please make sure you go deep in, uh, as much as you can at that point in time, and as much as the organization allows you to. Uh, but if there is an opportunity that presents to move sideways, grab that as well, because at the end of the day, I mean, even we have seen uh, great organizations who have good talent development, talent management strategies. They move people in different roles, because when the time comes and you have to sort of head a certain function or a
Yeah.
department, you need to know what's happening everywhere.
Right. I think for young professionals listening to this, I think it's a very, very candid view from Parag here on how to earn a seat probably at the table if you are in an L&D function.
Yeah.
Right. You talked about business understanding a lot, right? And I have also spoken to multiple L&D professionals who say that they feel siloed, right? There isn't design programs probably, but are never in a room where business strategies are discussed or made. So, is it a structural problem you think in many organizations, or is that just a perception kind of a issue with that individual?
Um, Combination is what I would think. Uh, there are organizations that I know who value learning quite a bit, that are really, uh, and then when I say they are focusing on learning, I don't mean necessarily the training hours typically, which is one of the metrics a lot of people track. Uh, to me, it is the effectiveness. How is that impacting the business? Like I mentioned earlier, is it creating future ready workforce? Is it helping the organization achieve its business goals? Um, and coming back to your question, maybe yes, at some point in time, uh, it could also be a people problem, in the sense, I think that my job is to deliver the programs that I'm asked to do. But do I go over and beyond? Maybe do I see some challenges in the organization, or am I talking to different functions? Trust me, even if within HR people, the L&D guys are talking, they will get a lot of information. Uh,
Yeah.
Recently, there was some discussion that was happening in our teams, and we realized that maybe our uh, hiring managers need to have a better understanding of how to interview people, right? I mean, it's a very small thing. I mean, ideally, all organizations would be giving this kind of a running this kind of a program, but we realize that maybe somewhere we are not achieving the kind of results or the output through the talent acquisition. So we are now rolling out a program, but it is about connecting with people, talking to people, even if it's a water cooler or a coffee chat, meeting people around, and also being able to somewhere look at the big picture. So you go, very deep in your work, very close to your work, then you will not be able to see what's happening around. But when you kind of move away, you'll be able to see, okay, there are these different things that are happening. How do I connect them now? Um, Similarly, there are times in larger organizations, certain programs are driven by the HQ or the corporate, which come to the regional or the hubs, but in a different manner, or may need some adaptation. So again, I would think that for an individual to succeed in the role of a learning and development professional, they need to understand what's happening where, and kind of connect those dots and make recommendations. uh, Worst case, it will be shot down. but you at least
Mm.
tried, and you kind of went ahead and said, okay, I see this as a problem. And again, building those connections, or where are, in what forums can you bring those up? uh, do I talk to my HR business partners that, okay, I'm observing this, is this a program that we are uh, think might help resolving? Can you talk to the leaders? Or if I have a direct connect with the leaders in my interactions, can I bring it up to them? So those are the ways I think. It's both ways. um, a lot of times I hear back from the business is when people are sent to a training program or a learning program, it's a non-billable hour. So a lot of times leaders are hesitant sending their people for the programs because then it goes as unbillable. But it's almost like saying that, okay, I want to go out and keep cutting the wood without sharpening the axe and still expect that I will keep improving my productivity. So I just go back to say, okay, are we sharpening the axe often, or are we just going out and hoping that it will be a lucky day and we might strike gold.
Right, wonderfully put there, I think. Just coming back to what you earlier also mentioned, probably since you work with across kind of various domains, and even in Knorr-Bremse, you are handling learning for various kind of entities there, various business contexts. How do you think it has kind of shaped uh, kind of your career path, and also how you have been designing since the beginning of your career, if you have to look at it, and now how has it changed or evolved, say?
All right. So, personally for me, if you look at my career, I started off uh, actually into recruitment, right? And I am not even a HR professional, but I was always interested in HR. So when I was doing my MBA, which was in marketing and international business from Symbiosis, HR was something that I got interested. So uh, came the placement time, I was competing with the HR guys, a marketing guy competing with the HR guys for this job. I was allowed to sit for some of them. I was lucky enough to probably be absorbed in an organization, and I started actually not even in recruitment. I was in something related to hiring. It was actually selling job spaces. So even before kind of Naukri became Naukri, what it
Naukri
is,
became Naukri.
I was selling win jobs, right? So, and then it of course is no longer there, but that's where it started. Then I moved into advertising, but related to recruitment. And that was this transition that I got into. Then TA, then into core of HR. I was heading HR, but my calling always was in L&D. I mean, I would always take an opportunity to probably take some sessions for the junior employees, or even do certain sessions, whether it was a team building session for our employees. I would always be the first one to put my hand up whenever it came to, okay, can we plan an outbound activity? And I was like, let's go for a trek. I feel trek is the best way to bond people. So we would go on a like a group trek, all of that. So I realized that this is something that I wanted to do, which is where in 2014, when I actually sort of took a break from the corporate, I started off my own organization, which was more into learning and development, consulting, coaching, because I took my coaching certification as well. Uh, I, I I think that journey kind of has been conscious in some sense. And when I thought of moving back to the corporate, I chose to get into learning and development rather than the generic HR kind of a role. And for the past 4 years, that journey has continued. And like I mentioned, over the last 6 months, there has been other flavor, because earlier in the career, I have also set up the uh, shared services. And now I am part of one of the shared services service line, or a tower as it is called. That's the learning services. And
Right.
it's been a great learning and a great journey.
Wonderful, wonderful. I think it's very, very inspiring for, I'm sure, for, I think for the next part, especially, is very, very interesting because this is probably many of the listeners would be waiting for. So, would request your honest thoughts on what probably are the common mistakes that early career L&D professionals make and what they can do to avoid it. I'll tell you from my point of view what I have heard. Some people say that they focus too much on content and too little on context, right? So probably they measure a lot of attendance and not the behavior change that they say. Are those real problems that you have come across?
I have, and you've actually hit the nail on the head. Uh, I would have come to that. There is always this thing where context versus content. Uh, but I don't blame those young professionals as well, because they are sent in with a certain mandate, and
Mm,
typically that mandate is to ensure that the program is delivered, it's happening, and the learning calendar that has been set up, or the training calendar, we are, because one of the, like I said, one of the matrix typically is the learning hours. Second is planned versus actual, what is the rate. So they are chasing that, or at the best you're also looking at the feedback, but again those are smiley sheets, right? The real uh, test is when we look at the effectiveness, as you very rightly said. So even in this in the organization that I am, what we are doing is we are taking the effectiveness from the manager of the participant, anywhere between 90 to 120 days after the program has happened, right? And we take that pretty seriously, because the feedback that comes in, we kind of analyze, look at each of those feedbacks. If at all there is even um, any critical remark there, we will go back and investigate why. And because at the end of the day, the organization is spending time and energy and money, right, on training people. So how can we ensure that that effectiveness is there, and that effectiveness should not just be restricted uh, to the basic reaction level, but it has to go, and maybe I'm quoting the Kirkpatrick here, but it has to go to the behavior and the result on ground. Am I able to see? So
yeah.
if somebody has undergone a certain program, are they able to now transfer that knowledge to somebody, right? That's the key, because to me, uh, I mean, and people talk about this 70-20-10 rule, but 70 is all about transferring knowledge or the skill to other people, sharing that. And for all of those people who have ever even taught a younger sibling or somebody younger in the house, trust me, every time, even a simple thing you're teaching somebody, there is always a new way of looking at. So when you're sharing, when you're teaching, when you're training, when you're facilitating, you always have certain learning of your own. So I would rather focus on that rather than just the content, because I mean, the reality is, these days, to get people to do a 2 or 3 day program is becoming a challenge, and that's
Mm, yeah.
so that's the other side of learning, where we are actually struggling as to how do we get people interested in a 3 day program or a 2 day program, because certain topics demand that kind of an attention.
Yeah. Right. I love it when you said that it's a smiley sheet, right? Just to pin it down, if you had to pick just one, any one mistake that sets back a career the most, what would it be?
um, I would think one mistake would probably be having a lack of understanding some of the basics of learning and development. Uh,
Mhm.
so the very base, if I am into learning and development today, I need to understand the adult learning methodologies, the andragogy at least. And I need to understand how do I create uh, an engaging environment for my participants, and then that has nothing to do with the content per se. So, but
Yeah.
yes, a lot of times things like adult learning models are not taught in any of the MBA courses. Those would be
Right.
something, if I'm interested, I have to go find out, read a bit in the psychology, or in the uh, or maybe go and do an ISTD course. I mean, I would love candidate who comes to me with a ISTD course, because they that shows to me that okay, they have invested time and energy in understand some of the
Mhm.
basics of it.
Yeah. Is something also you touched upon a while ago about how one should also keep L&D professionals also keep themselves updated, right? They should remain agile and know the current state of affairs.
Yeah, absolutely, absolutely. And right now, learners are extremely demanding.
Hmm.
Uh, Most organizations also are struggling, I feel, with keeping up with the pace at which a lot of things around us are changing. We are in the phase where we are, I mean, we probably don't give it more than 2 seconds if we don't like a reel on Insta, right? We just scroll it up. I imagine you're asking coming and sitting in the classroom. Uh, so we do a lot of vetting of our trainers as well, external trainers as well, and
Mhm.
a lot of times a lot of trainers, senior trainers, don't like that because we do kind of almost evaluate them before we take them on board. But I think that's required to ensure that uh, the people that are coming in also to impart knowledge or train our people are engaging enough. Uh, and there are some really great trainers both on the technical and non-technical side now. And these are people who have I see that they have that passion to even on the topics. So that's lovely.
I think that's very important to have passion for that subject that you are really teaching. Right? Now, the next question is absolutely, I love this question because it strips away all the right answers and gets real. So, 27 years of experience means 27 years of hindsight, right? So, if you are probably starting your L&D journey today, what would you do differently?
What would I do differently? Kind of answer that, but maybe I would spend a little more time what I am expecting now when people are coming into L&D. So for me, it was a choice, and I kind of built that over a period of time. But if I was to start from the beginning, an L&D career, I would spend time and energy understanding some of the very basics of uh, the for example, what does it mean? What is an andragogy, or what's an ADDIE model? How does the Kirkpatrick model work? I would understand some of this uh, much detail. The Cobb's cycle of learning, or that there are different kind of learners. There are visual learners and auditory learners and kinesthetic learners. So I would spend time understanding that a bit more before I embark on this journey. That probably is the only thing I feel I learned a little later in my career, but I would have spent time doing that, and which is why I said maybe doing a ISTD course or something is would be a great addition for anybody who's looking to get into it.
Any one piece of advice that you wish someone had given you when you were 25 that you would give to every L&D aspirant today?
So this is now I have developed this philosophy, what LND is about, and maybe if somebody would have told me earlier, that would have been helpful. So my philosophy is that it's SALT, salt, right? And that's an acronym. I feel the LND function in an organization has to be like a salt, and the acronym S is strategic. It has to be always be strategic. A is for agile, L is for leading, and T is for transformational. So I feel, and then I look at the function now this way, but I wish somebody would have, explained this to me in some similar fashion, if not solved something else, but
Yeah.
uh, not too much of it, but not too little. But it not being there also doesn't create the magic.
Right. And in today's world, Parag, with AI, which is transforming learning, and you have also spoken about it, how do you think that kind of changes the career path of an individual, or how that augments? What would you say?
I think it augments. We are already seeing a lot of learning management systems using AI. A lot of platforms, like even in my organization, we have subscribed to LinkedIn Learning, and there is a AI component available based on my interest. I can actually choose courses, or what I have done. It will recommend courses. But that's at the basic level. In fact, me and my team right now, we are working on creating a sort of a Ask L&D chatbot. So a lot of questions that come to us, we are working on creating a, a chatbot that can answer it. And then, of course, AI is also helping us create micro learning modules. So a simple prompt in Copilot can actually give you a micro learning module within few minutes, which can then
Right.
be plugged on or pushed to people either on their mobiles or on the LMS. And so breaking down larger topics into smaller chunks is something that I feel we are doing very actively and extensively using, in some sense, the AI. All our In fact, earlier when I had to release a certain, let's say, communication which had some kind of an image, I would depend on my uh, team, the creative team, to give that to me. Now I just have to give a prompt to Copilot and I get that image. So we've also created recently. I showcased one AI generated zero code um gamified learning module. So, as an organization, we have certain leadership competencies. And traditionally, we have been doing like a 4-hour session to talk about those competencies and those leadership principles. However, again, uh, uh, it took quite a few iterations, but I was able to actually create an entire gamified uh, sort of a board game, virtual board game that somebody can play. And I don't have a coding background, so with zero code, I was able to create that. So uh, the limitation is only on your imagination, is what I feel. In some sense, definitely AI is augmenting it. AI is helping it out, and I think everybody just needs to get on board.
Right. I think what you just now mentioned, we have heard a lot of kind of individuals in your space talk about this problem. And as Courseplay, we have created something called Clip, which kind of institutionalizes the entire body of knowledge that an organization holds in itself in pockets, like we were discussing, right? Siloed in pockets,
Yeah.
right? So we have brought that into one platform, and at the click of a button, probably anybody who is probably a new joiner or probably transferring from another team to another one kind of get to know all the knowledge that has been there in the organization from years together. That's one kind of our latest offering that we have. We call it Click from Courseplay. I think something what you just mentioned, right, helps in multiple
That's
ways.
wonderful. I'm sure it will be a great asset, or maybe especially for a new joiner, because I think people in larger organizations or whichever organization do feel lost at the initial stages. There might be buddy programs and stuff, but I think that's a great initiative. I would
Right,
probably love to
and
explore that.
people can just type in any query and they get the answer at the click of a
Hmm.
button at any time, right? That's the beauty of this
Yeah.
entire thing, right? So moving on to the next session, probably I'd like to keep it a little more quick and as a rapid fire, maybe,
Okay.
right? Just instinct answers.
All right.
What you think about, right? Uh, what would be your must-read book for every L&D professional?
Must read book for every any professional. The Art of Facilitation.
Okay. Classroom training versus digital learning, still relevant or dead?
Classroom,
Okay.
or rather blended. Let me
Okay.
correct. Blended.
Okay. Great. One skill that will matter most in L&D in the next 5 years.
One skill that would matter most in L&D in the next 5 years is agility.
Okay. What do you know now that you wish you had known at the start? Maybe as a hindsight.
Um, that hmm, that's a tough one. I would possibly say understanding business better.
Right. Right. I think that's it for today, Parag. I think this is an absolute masterclass with you.
No, it's been a
Not just for
pleasure
the
to be
people.
here.
Yeah, I think not just for the people who want to be in L&D. I think, but honestly, actually, for anybody who wants to grow in their career, this is probably gold. Right. Thank you for your time again, once again, for your stories and your honesty.
No, thank you, Saikat.
Listeners,
Thanks for
now,
having me.
right, right. Thank you so much. Yeah. And listeners, if you haven't already connected with Parag on LinkedIn, just go out there and connect. 19,000 people follow him. And if this episode has resonated with any of you, just go out there and share. Anybody who is figuring out their career path, probably this would help them. Thank you, Parag. Thank you once again.
Thank you, Saikat, for having me. Thank you, team. It was a great conversation.